begin.
So my name is Amit Pal, and I'm the managing editor of the Progressive magazine, based in Madison, Wisconsin, for the past 103 years. And as the name implies, we're a progressive publication dedicated to peace and social justice and civil rights for all people.
Do you reflect the values of the Democratic Party? Are you right, center, or left of the Democratic Party, would you say?
Well, Tim, we aren't aligned with any political party per se. In fact, we're a non-profit and we don't endorse in any race. But to be honest, we'd be at the left end of the spectrum, and we'd be ideologically aligned with progressive Democrats such as, say, Congressman Dennis Kucinich, sadly ex-Senator Russ Feingold, he was very close to us, Keith Ellison from Minnesota. So the progressive wing, the Congressional Progressive Caucus, we'd be agreeing with the views of many members of Congress who are in that caucus.
As you analyze America, what do you think, in simplistic terms, are the three biggest problems with our society as they relate to either political or economic systemic issues that you think need to be addressed, in your opinion?
Well, I think the first one is the stranglehold domestically, the stranglehold of the financial sector on the system. And the fact that both parties are so supine and so craven when it comes to challenging that chokehold. And this can be seen by the fact that the Obama administration has and had as its leading economic policy makers Tim Geithner and Lawrence Summers, and both of them were so deferential to Wall Street and the financial sector that they were loath to challenge it, and the result is this economic mess that we have today. Foreign policy wise, I think the military-industrial complex, and that is a good part of the reason that the United States is almost always at war in some corner of the world or the other. Of course, the Bush administration made that worse, that tendency much worse, but I think that's been a perennial problem, and I think that's a result of the enormous power that the Pentagon has over foreign policy making. And the third, of course, is something that we are grappling with right now, the immigration issue and how to rationally deal with that. And I think both the Republican and the Democrat parties are at a loss as to how to deal with that in a rational and just manner.
Your magazine's title is derived from a party that once existed and now doesn't, that tried to be a third party. I'm a libertarian, which is the third largest party in America, but it's having trouble, getting into the mainstream. Do you think there is an important or something that's very crucial about having at least a third, if not 4, 5, 6 parties in America? Or do you think that's a side issue, the idea of a third party to break the logjam?
Oh, Tim, that's not at all a side issue for us. Since the genesis of the Progressive was in a third party, we have been championing third parties forever. In fact, the closest we came to endorsing somebody was Ralph Nader in 2000, although we didn't formally endorse him. We cover third party again and again. We feel that they are a crucial challenge to the system. In fact, in a coming issue, we are profiling the Green Party presidential candidate, Jill Stein. And we have felt that they've always had a positive effect on the system. Much of the New Deal actually came from Norman Thomas's Socialist Party back in the 1920s and the 30s, for example. Ross Perot, no matter what you think of him, actually brought the deficit, for example, onto the agenda in a way it hadn't been so before. So, no, we really feel that third parties are an extremely important part of the system, and it's too bad that the way the system is set up, that it's almost impossible for third parties to break into the system and to mount an effective challenge. And of course, that can be seen from the fact that the last time third party was able to break through and become a mainstream party was the Whigs disappearing and the Whigs disappearing and the Republicans appearing back in, of course, in the 1860s.
Speaking of our history, in my certainly not that I certainly am just learning about how our world works. But to me, everything went wrong in the early 20th century with the Federal Reserve Act. Tell me what you think about that and the Fed in general, and how much of a problem you think it is that a privately controlled entity presents itself almost like a government agency and creates debt-based currency that mathematically can never be paid back and is essentially a Ponzi scheme, from my opinion. Do you believe any of what I said, or do you disagree? What's your opinion on that idea?
Respectfully, I partly agree and I partly disagree. I've heard a lot of talk about the gold standard and about how the money supply should be completely constrained, and I'm not sure if I agree with that. At the same time, I think the Fed is an extremely problematic institution. It has been shown by scholars who have studied the financial debacle of the recent past, that the Fed played a major role in it by arguing for a laissez-faire approach toward the banks and Wall Street. Alan Greenspan, who is very much an Ayn Rand acolyte, was actually a disciple of hers, so to speak. Was very much in favor of letting the financial sector do what it wanted, and we can see what the end result has been. So the Fed is an extremely conservative, in the worst sense of the term, institution that has really let the financial sector go haywire, and Greenspan was in particular an egregious culprit when he was heading it for a decade plus 2 decades. From the 1980s to a few years ago.
And so, what is the solution then? To regulate them, to eliminate them, to have oversight? I mean, they don't even answer to Congress. I mean, Ron Paul wants an audit and he can't even get that done. So, what do you think?
Where I would differ from some libertarians is not necessarily. I wouldn't think that the solution would be necessarily in completely doing away with them, but definitely much more congressional accountability, and through the Congress to the public. And Congressman Dennis Kucinich, I bring up his name again because I really do admire him. Sadly, he's leaving office because he's been redistricted out of his district. Has proposed this again and again. Has been really sharp in his questioning of the Fed. And I think that really needs Senator Bernie Sanders is someone else who has again and again brought up this issue. The senator from Vermont, the only non-Democrat, non-Republican senator we have right now. And I really believe that needs to be done, and needs to be done real soon.
In India, there's a democracy and corruption, but it's almost as if the corruption, to the extent that it exists, is admitted or not hidden. In America, there's corruption, and it seems that cover-up, it's like the Watergate mentality. Do you think corruption is a big part of the American problem, how corrupt the government can be, or how corruptible it is with the intersection of private money into politics? What do you think about that issue, money in politics, private money in public politics?
Oh, Tim, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think when India, you're right. So there are two levels at which India and the United States differ. One is that it's much more hidden here than in India, and the second is at the ground level. In terms of somebody going to say a municipal office, you don't have to pay a bribe to get a copy of your birth certificate here, thankfully, unlike in India and many other places. But yes, the role of private money in the electoral system is, in my opinion, perhaps the biggest problem in American politics today. And the Progressive has been championing again and again, and that's been one of our major themes, I think, for the past century. The fact that this needs to be taken out, there needs to be public financing, limits on spending, pretty much a complete overhaul of the way elections are financed. Because it's inherently corrupt, inherently problematic, and we are seeing the end result. That Wall Street has taken over the system. Not one single Wall Street exec has gone to jail for the subprime scandal. The people who have gone to jail for insider trading and fraud, like Bernie Madoff, etc. But the bigwigs at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, all those places, not a single person has gone to jail. And I believe part of it is because they control the system through their campaign donations to both the Republicans and the Democrats.
Why do you think it is that Americans are so apathetic in terms of these problems? There's no revolution. There's the Occupy movement was actually, to me, a very good sign of things coming, and then it died off. What did you think of the Occupy movement, and what do you think about America's apathy towards changing these things?
Well, the Occupy movement was great, and we wholeheartedly supported it. It brought to the American consciousness a number of issues which were otherwise hidden, ranging from Wall Street's control of the system to inequality. And you're right, unfortunately, it's petered out because there wasn't electoral response to their demands, and that shows you to the extent that they control the system. As to why more Americans didn't join in, I think the Republicans and the mainstream media have muddled the debate with the result that there's confusion among a lot of people as to what happened, why it happened. A lot of people, for example, believe that it was too much government interference. Excuse me.
You want to get some water? You want some water?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Too much government interference, for example, that it was perhaps democratic as in sort of a capital D interference that caused this sort of subprime scandal, while it was essentially the government deregulating, allowing commodities sort of trading, allowing the Glass-Steagall Act to expire. All of that sort of combined led to this, but in the minds, as I said, of ordinary Joe Sixpack, that's not clearly the case because the Republicans and the media have both managed to muddle the issue.
And that's a good point. The media is obviously something that we have a